everybody, and welcome to X Marks the Box, the world's 1,337th Xbox-centric podcast, until proven otherwise. I'm your host, Jared, and usually we start with game announcements, but let's start with, since we don't really have any game announcements, what's coming this week to Xbox. Resident Evil 7 Banned Footage Volume 1 and 2, the two pieces of DLC for Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, finally make their way to Xbox One and PC. This has been a while coming. They first came out for PS4. Great pieces of DLC. Daughters is great, the escape room is great, the poker one's pretty cool, and so is the wave-based piece of DLC in there as well. If you haven't played Resident Evil 7, definitely get your hands on it. If you did beat Resident Evil 7, this DLC is worth it. It's really good. It's great that it finally came to Xbox One and PC. Get your hands on it if you can. And a lot of people can't wait for that Not a Hero DLC featuring somebody familiar from Resident Evil. I don't want to spoil it. Yeah, so definitely get your hands on that new Resident Evil 7 DLC. Also coming this week to Xbox, Halo Wars Definitive Edition. This is fitting considering Halo Wars 2 is releasing this week. That's the second thing here on the list. The sequel to 2009's real-time strategy dive into the Halo universe by way of 343 Industries and Creative Assembly. Halo Wars 2 looks cool. It's actually our topic of the show we'll get into later. But yeah, you can pick up Halo Wars Definitive Edition as well as Halo Wars 2 if you want to get caught up on the whole series. Remember, Halo Wars 2 is also available on PC, not just Xbox, and it is cross-play. So that's cool. Let's get into the hefty bit of news this week. First off, Microsoft has revealed via a tweet by Xbox's MajorNelson, aka Larry Erb, that the E3 2017 Microsoft press conference will be taking place on Sunday, June 11th, 2017 at 2 p.m. Pacific. This is huge considering Microsoft has been known to kick off E3 by holding their conference early Monday morning, followed by Ubisoft and EA, and then the day ends with Sony. Now Xbox is actually joining Bethesda on Sunday, which is huge. They're going to be going before Bethesda by all looks. Bethesda's usually is in the late afternoon Sunday. This is 2 p.m. Pacific, so this is early on Sunday. E3 has extended to Sunday in the past couple of years, especially by way of Bethesda holding their own conference. This is huge. I really think that this means that there's something going on between Bethesda and Microsoft. They had a little bit of that last year, especially during the Scorpio announcement video. We saw Todd Howard in that video. We saw the nice relationship there with Fallout 4 2 E3s ago. And this is huge. I think that this means that there's either some kind of big partnership with Fallout VR that Todd Howard recently talked about, or it's something else we don't know about. Maybe Bethesda's making an Xbox exclusive, considering they recently talked about working on 7 big projects, 2 of them that we already know. Other than that, this means that a lot more people can actually see the Microsoft press conference. The problem is it took place early Monday and people work, meaning by the time they got out of work, unless they were huge Xbox fans, they'd have to go out of their way to watch the VOD, whereas PlayStation's is at night and people can just talk about it. Also, it gives Xbox control of their own messaging. They're releasing a new console this year. Whether it's an iteration or a brand new Xbox, they need to be able to have their message come across and people talk about it for a good amount of time. And having that entire day between Microsoft and PlayStation is going to be huge for Xbox's plans, Microsoft's plans this year at E3 2017. The next bit of news here also has to do with E3 in 2017. Marketing manager Aaron Greenberg stated via Twitter, "Since many fans have asked, yes, along with Money Rumble and at MajorNelson, we are planning Xbox Fanfest at E3 this year. More details coming soon." Xbox Fanfest will more than likely happen before the conference, as it did last time. And this is huge, considering that, they're launching new consoles we talked about before. Project Scorpio is going to be a big deal. And, Xbox wants to make this a big deal. They don't have their own PSX. I really hope, this is one of my big hopes, I really hope that Xbox does have their own kind of PSX. They need an event to celebrate the fans. And though FanFest is cool, it takes place around E3, I think they need something late in the year to talk to fans again. That's why PSX is so great, because you have E3, especially with the big three not really going to Gamescom or taking it super seriously, having their own press conferences at Gamescom. Having something late in the year to still communicate with your fans, I think, is huge. PSX is a very good thing for PlayStation. It kind of helped them because they had the PS4 Pro reveal event. It didn't go over swimmingly. Then they had a PSX to kind of be able to bounce back. And I think Xbox having an event late in the year would definitely help with mindshare. And Phil Spencer and the guys have been quiet about Scorpio and Xbox because I think they want to make E3 such a big blowout event that I understand why they didn't want to talk too much. But going forward, I really think that Xbox would benefit from having its own event, its own PSX. And I think Xbox fans are clamoring for that. FanFest will look to do that. Hopefully it's successful. I think last year's FanFest was super successful. Some fans won trips to FanFest, which is really cool. And it seems like, this whole Xbox regime now really wants the fans to come first. They've shown that with backwards compatibility, with numerous features, with a commitment to exclusives. And it seems like this is just another positioning factor of, we're having FanFest again this year. We want to celebrate with you guys. E3 is as much of an event for us as it is for you, and we understand that. And we want to make it as awesome as we can for you guys. So once we have details, I'll share it here on the podcast. It'll probably be closer to E3. But it's great that Aaron Greenberg is coming out saying, we are doing FanFest. You don't have to worry about it. I know you guys keep asking because you guys are interested. We are doing it. For those who don't know, MajorNelson is obviously Larry Erb, one of the main people over there at Xbox, public-facing people. And Money Rumble is actually one of the people who handles FanFest. So those are two big names. Obviously, he's working with them because they want to make FanFest such a great event, especially with the likes of the exclusives coming out this year. So definitely look to that. FanFest is huge. People love FanFest, and I think it'll be a great time for everybody involved. Now, the last bit of news here, the last story is kind of huge. Head of Xbox Phil Spencer unveiled some key information into Microsoft's game plan, as well as what you can expect for 2017 via a personal post on Xbox.com's official news blog. Spencer states, 2017 is shaping up to be one of the most exciting years ever for Xbox gamers. We are preparing to launch the most powerful console ever made this holiday, Project Scorpio, along with a diverse lineup of games. In fact, we are committed to delivering even more exclusive games for both Xbox One and Windows 10 this year than we launched in 2016. I was very proud of our first-party lineup in 2016 and am encouraged by an even bigger and more differentiated first-party lineup in 2017, starting with today's launch of Halo Wars 2. And this is him talking about how Halo Wars 2 came out early for people who got the Ultimate Edition, and this is huge. Obviously, we know Phil Spencer is committed to doing what's in the best interest of the gamer. He wants to get Xbox back on top. They kind of been outpaced by PS4, and there's that whole other discussion of, is Project Scorpio a new console or is it an iteration? And as time keeps going on, it seems as though it's going to be a new console. It seems as if this is the next step for Xbox. And though they've stated before that all of the Xbox One games, all of Project Scorpio's games will run on Xbox One, that's kind of what happened when the Xbox One and PS4 launched, is most games came out on both systems. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case here too. Also, considering Xbox is really close to the PC community, it wouldn't be surprising if they have multiple tiers of games. You can run a game at low settings or high settings. And I think this is huge. Spencer goes on to talk about Xbox exclusives slated for 2017, specifically mentioning Undead Labs' State of Decay 2, which looks awesome by the way, the disappearing act known as Crackdown 3, and Rare's pirate adventure Sea of Thieves, before finishing off with, and of course, we'll have more in store for you at E3 2017 in June. So this is huge. Obviously, we know State of Decay 2 is coming. They've said 2017. It's a huge sequel to the first State of Decay, which was kind of like a quiet hit. State of Decay 2, 4-player co-op, looks to be bigger than ever. People love themselves some zombies, especially considering we haven't gotten Left 4 Dead in a very long time. State of Decay 2 is kind of positioned to be a really cool and exciting game that could be a sleeper hit if they handle it right. So hopefully we'll see that, and we'll get some specific details at E3. As far as the disappearing act known as Crackdown 3. Crackdown 3 was shown off 2 years ago. We didn't hear about it last year at all. I really think that this was a move by Microsoft to have a big title to show off Project Scorpio. They talked about the cloud and how everything was destructible, and Crackdown 3 is a game where you kind of show that stuff off. And I think what they did is they kept it close to the vest. Like, we're not going to talk about it at E3 last year because they don't want to get people excited for something that's a long way off. So they talked about Project Scorpio. Once Project Scorpio was announced, that's when you knew, oh, okay, that's the Crackdown 3 machine. So I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out day and date with Project Scorpio this fall, and we'll get more details on that as well. And lastly, Rare's pirate adventure Sea of Thieves, that's currently in closed alpha, and they're doing technical studies and tests and stuff like that, and they're adding more content to the game. My big worry with Sea of Thieves is that it doesn't have enough content for the average consumer to justify a purchase. I think that Sea of Thieves has a lot going for it. I think it's going to be a great experience. I think it's going to be fun, but what's the tail on it? And I think Rare's trying to figure that out now. They're trying to add enough content to it to make it feel like a real fun experience, because going and navigating to an island, getting gold, coming back and depositing it, that's fun, but for how long is that fun? And, Rare is known for making some fantastic games. They've had some duds here and there, but they're known for making some fantastic titles. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly happens with Rare Sea of Thieves. Will it come out this year? I'm personally under the impression that I think it gets delayed till early next year, maybe even fall next year. But I would love to see it this year. If E3 is as big as Phil Spencer's talking it to be, maybe we don't even need Sea of Thieves this year. Maybe we can push it. And it's a game that I think people are excited for, but I don't think would cause a huge stir if it got delayed, because it really doesn't even have a specific release date yet. It's only vaguely 2017. So I think Sea of Thieves is the one to watch, the interesting one. I think State of Decay 2 for sure hits this year. I think Crackdown 3 for sure hits this year. Sea of Thieves, I'm not too sure yet. Phil Spencer then talks about the re-release and remaster of both Phantom Dust and Voodoo Vince, as well as indie darlings on the horizon in the form of Cuphead, Below, and Tacoma. A lot of people thought Phantom Dust was canceled, and they are re-releasing it. I don't know if it's a remaster. The way they talk about it is very vague. I don't know if it's just an upscaled re-release, if they're doing anything to the game. I know they're adding online support functionality. Other than that, I don't know what the extent of the re-release is. I don't know how updated the graphics are and stuff like that. I'm not too sure. They're kind of vague on those details. And once again, we'll probably get more information at E3. Also, the remaster of Voodoo Vince, we've known about this for quite some time. The announcement was maybe a couple of months ago. Voodoo Vince was a darling on Xbox, and I really think that it's going to shine with this remaster. Though it's not a very known property, I think the Xbox audience is looking and clamoring for things that are uniquely Xbox. PlayStation has all of these great games coming out that are known for being PlayStation games, especially with the upcoming release of Horizon Zero Dawn. And I think that, Xbox fans, though they do have quality exclusives, I think Xbox fans are clamoring for the characters to call their own. When you look at PlayStation, you have so many. You have Sly, you have Crash, you have Nathan Drake, you have Kratos, on and on, Sackboy, you have on and on. Even Nintendo, characters galore. Nintendo, obviously top tier when it comes to that. And Xbox, they really only have Master Chief, Marcus Phoenix, and a couple of other people. Like Banjo-Kazooie isn't known for being Xbox, it's more of a Rare thing. And as time moves forward, obviously is more synonymous with Xbox. But outside of that, there's not a lot of characters that Xbox gamers can relate to. And I think Voodoo Vince, if the remaster's done right, which it looks like it's being done fantastically well, I think this can be a character that Xbox gamers fall in love with. So hopefully there's a beautiful horizon for Voodoo Vince, pun intended. As well as the indie darlings. Cuphead seems to have managed to have a little bit of turmoil, considering they've been delayed a couple of times. Personally, I think this is due to the platforming not working that well. When it was initially announced, it looked like Boss Battle the game, which was fine. I was super okay with that. The art style is beautiful, classic Disney style look. But I think they wanted to pad their game out, and they wanted to make a platformer, and they realized it was super difficult. And it's two guys making, which is super impressive. But I think that I commend them for being brave enough to be like, yeah, we don't like the way the platforming is working out in this game. And this is all just conjecture. I don't know if this is actually the case, but to me, that's what it seems like. It seems like the platforming wasn't where they wanted it because the boss fights were so meticulously well crafted. So they decided to just, work hard on making the platforming right, and I commend them for that. Hopefully we see Cuphead this year. I'm not too sure. I don't want to bet on it. Also below, Cappy Games, they recently announced they gave I believe it was a vague 2016 release date, and then once they delayed it, they stated, we're just not going to give you a release date till it's done. I commend this too, because far too many times people feel pressure to, well, if we delay it, we need to give another date. And I think, Cappy Games is like, well, it's gonna set us up to have to meet dates and all of this stuff, and I think they were in the best interest of gamers when they said, we're just going to tell you when it's done. When it's done and we can actually release it, we'll give you a release date, which I think is huge. I think that could be a game that gets a release date at E3 that's soon. I think it could be announced at E3, that the release date, that is. Obviously, we've known about Below forever. And it's like, comes out July or August, mid-July, mid-August, that quick. Below looks fantastic. And I think that's a game that could be huge on Xbox, considering the success of Inside, though it was a timed exclusive. It was huge on Xbox. Lastly, Tacoma, Steve Gaynor and the guys over there that made Gone Home, that game was fantastic. Tacoma, it being a console exclusive to Xbox, is huge. Don't know if that's timed or not. hopefully it's time so other people can get their hands on Tacoma, but that game looks fantastic as well. Hopefully we'll hear more about that at E3 as well. Spencer ends the post building up excitement for the future of backwards compatibility and showing appreciation for the vast array of third-party partners. So finally, closing out this article, he basically talks about Ubisofts and the EAs and everybody he's so excited to be working with. I think that third parties are going to be clamoring to be on Microsoft stages here at E3. They have the most powerful console. Their games are going to look the best. It's going to be interesting to see who chooses to show off their stuff on Microsoft conference. If anybody pulls away from Sony's conference to show their stuff off at Microsoft's, it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that plays out. Before we get into this week's topic of the show, let's talk about this day in Xbox. February 21st, let's go all the way back to 2006. Sonic Riders released on the Xbox 360 as well as other consoles in the United States. It currently sits at a 56 on Metacritic, but the user rating tells a different story. It currently sits at a rating of 81 amongst users. We all know the Sonic franchise has seen worse days. In a long-running series of flops and misguided half-steps, Sonic Riders isn't at the bottom of that hefty barrel. This week's topic of the show, I simply want to talk about, will Halo Wars 2 be a success? So, reviews are pouring in currently for Halo Wars 2. We don't know how it's going to do commercially. Hopefully it does well. Their ad campaign is brilliant. If you haven't seen it, it's basically Cutter and Atriox, doing the strategy thing, because Halo Wars 2 is a real-time strategy game, over a car deal at a used car lot, or sitting on a plane and having to negotiate who gets the armrest. And it shows their tactics back and forth, and it really conveys the messaging of the game. That this is a strategy game, that you got to use your brain, your brawn, everything to overcome your opponent. And I think the real-world aspect of it with the giant, prop Atriox costume is brilliant marketing. I think it's huge. I think it's great. Will that mean success in terms of Halo Wars 2? I don't know. Halo Wars 2 currently sits at an 81% on Metacritic, which is great. I think that's a solid score. Halo Wars was only on Xbox 360, and Halo Wars 2 is on Xbox One and PC, meaning that there's a bigger array of gamers that can get their hands on the game now, which is huge. The problem is, how will PC gamers take on a more casual RTS? Now, I'm not saying, Halo Wars 2 is baby's first real-time strategy game, but it isn't the StarCrafts. It isn't these mecha games of RTS competition. And it's going to be interesting to see how the PC audience clamors to these. And I personally think that it could be huge. One big problem in the mobile community is that people feel that the likes of Dota and League of Legends are kind of really hard to get into because that's where the real people play. And people feel as if they're not good enough, why even play in the first place? And I think that's where Smite comes in. And though Smite isn't it's third-person MOBA, it's not necessarily over-the-top MOBA, it is a comfortable enough entry point for people familiar with console games or just shooters or third-person games to jump into the world of MOBAs. And I think that's huge. Though Smite isn't as big as, as the League of Legends and the Dotas, it does bring in a great market share. Its revenue is great. And it does have an esports scene, and it does have a large audience. Obviously, it's dwarfed in comparison by League of Legends and Dota, but it doesn't mean it's not huge in its own right. And I think that's a huge thing for Halo Wars 2. I think that it's going to be looked at by a lot of people as, I don't want to play that RTS, I play real RTSs, which is a shame that they look at things like that. But I also think on the opposite end of that, people who want to get into StarCraft, get into these awesome RTSs, they can sit back and be like, I'm familiar with Halo. It's an RTS, but that's a universe I'm comfortable with. Let's try it out. And I think that's a great step for Halo Wars 2. I think its marketing campaign is fantastic. I think that, though Halo Wars 2 probably didn't sell fantastically commercially, it was kind of an indie darling hit, which is funny to say for a Halo game, right? But I do think that they can find a great audience. I think this will sell well on Xbox One. I think it'll exceed expectations on PC because of that niche audience of people who want to get into RTSs and have an entry point now. People who maybe want to take a break from StarCraft. Maybe people who just love Halo and never really get Halo games on PC and are like, I'll play an RTS, this seems fun. And I think this is going to be great. I really hope Halo Wars 2 succeeds. We want exclusives to succeed because it's great for Xbox, and it basically shows the guys over at Microsoft, hey, invest in exclusives, we'll buy them. Now, rounding back to my initial question, Will it succeed? I don't know. If I was a betting man, if you had a gun to my head for some reason, or you forced me into a bet where I had to bet my entire life savings on a binary yes or no, will Halo Wars 2 be a success? I would say yes. Now, that's weird, right? Because success to a certain extent is not always objective. It can be subjective. Success to the company, you don't know if that means sale numbers, you don't know if that's recouping costs, if it's exceeding profit. You don't know exactly what constitutes success in a publisher's eyes. And I really want Halo Wars 2 to be successful. I really hope it's successful. It's reviewing very well, which is great. It's available on multiple platforms, which is great. And it can find a niche audience on PC, which I think is also great. So, to close out the conversation, I think it'll be a success. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I definitely would appreciate if you left me a comment letting me know if you think Halo Wars 2 will be a success. And if not, tell me why. I want to hear what your reasoning as to why you think it won't be a success. I'd love to hear your reasoning. Also, let me know what you think of the advertisements for Halo Wars 2. I think those things are fantastic. I think they're really well done. I think they're funny, which is huge. And yeah, I'm excited to see where Halo Wars 2 takes off, because Halo as a property needs to be explored more. We've gotten the Reaches, we've gotten the ODSTs, we've gotten the RTSs now, 2 of them. I want to see what they can do with this, and I want to see what they can do with Gears, because I think extending those franchises out and making the most of them, Marioing them to a good extent, will be great for Xbox in the future. And, if we want more games like this to be made, games in the same universe but different types of games, we need to show support, or at least show, if you don't like it, what they did wrong so they can correct it next time. So, yeah, feel free to leave me a comment about this week's topic of the show. Will Halo Wars 2 be a success? And I'd love to talk to you about it in the comment section down below, if you're listening to it on YouTube, obviously. Before we close out, in honor of Halo Wars 2 coming out this week, our achievement of the week is in Halo Wars 2. There was plenty to choose from, a bunch of awesome achievements, but I really loved the Halo-ness of this achievement and the name. So, Alas Poor Yorick is the name of the achievement. If you're not familiar, Yorick is, I think, a League of Legends hero, but more importantly, he's from Hamlet. He's a jester, and he has his skull brought up by a gravedigger, so it's a really funny thing. And leading you into that, the achievement is for collecting your first skull. 10 gamer score, simple, a little bit of gamer score there. There's obviously achievements for collecting half of the skulls and all of the skulls. There's some very classic Halo achievements in there, like completing everything on Legendary with all the skulls turned on. But Alas Poor Yorick, because of the name, because of the reference, because of the Halo-ness of the Halo Wars 2 achievement, I know that sounds funny, it's our achievement of the week. So, yeah, happy collecting with that Alas Poor Yorick. Hopefully you can get a skull in your hands. Hopefully you can collect all of them. And that's it. That's the first episode of X Marks the Box, the, world's 1,337th Xbox podcast until proven otherwise. Thank you guys for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know there's not a lot of Xbox-centric podcasts out there. Maybe there is, and I just don't know of them. But yeah, I love Xbox. I love talking about Xbox, and I hope you love listening to me talk about Xbox. I want to keep the conversation going, so definitely leave a comment if you're listening to us on YouTube. Like, share, rate, subscribe, do a 360 no-scope, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in episode 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and thank you for listening to the first episode.